So I guess the qualities that I really focus on when it comes to this is independence. That's really important to me. Empathy. That's hugely important to me. The ability to assume other people's position. Um, Freedom. That's a huge one for me, and it sort of ties into independence. But freedom is a huge one for me. Um, I guess I'll just set with these three: independence, empathy, and freedom. So I'll clue in with these two, and I'll sort of magnify why these are important to me. So I'm not completely set on what I want. Although I have it there, I can't really articulate it to you just yet. I'm still on that journey, and it's such a plan. It's such an object that it seems so transcendental. It's something that if I try to word it, it won't do it. Not only will it not do it justice, but it won't hold a platform in your mind. Uh, but this idea exists. It's very real for me. So what I can say that you will be able to absorb is maybe I don't know what I want. And I do. It's not solidified enough where I can articulate it to you. You understand? Um, so let's say these three things in particular: focus, I'm sorry, which is also an important one for me, but that's not one of the three. Freedom, independence, empathy. So I may not know what I want, but I do know what I don't want. And I don't want anything that restricts my ability to have independence, empathy, or freedom. And another one is genuineness, which is sort of tied into the others. Uh, Honesty. So if I can't be myself, what the fuck am I doing? I am a human being. Why am I in a situation? Why am I squared into a box where I can't express myself as a complete human being, as I am, as Adriel Rodriguez or Juno Ronan? Why can't I express myself as a complete human being? Why do I have to play pretend? Why do I have to um, ploy the social structure in our culture? And I'm willing to play this game more or less for now as I am discovering more and more ways how to be genuine and also fit into this paradigm. Independence. I managed to be very independent while working under a boss. Although these seems like contradictions, I always say there is a way. What is it that you want? And if you want it, what are you willing to sacrifice for it? Like I said, these are observations coming from an um, inexperienced, less than 100 air. These are my observations. Whether they mean a lot to you is less relevant. I'm expressing. Um, so why am I expressing these ideas? I'm expressing these ideas for a few reasons. One, I enjoy to communicate. I'm definitely a talker. I'm definitely an articulator. I enjoy to convey and express things. That's probably one of the most important things to me as a human being, to express what I have in me. I think I have such a large epitome of energy and interest and ideas and curiosity that what becomes most important to me is to express it. I think that's why from a young age I was really interested in art, in different arts. Whether it was my rap poetry, I did once feature in an art show for my rap poetry, which was very well admired when I was 17ish. It was a nice stage. It was a beautiful crowd. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed. I don't like being on stage. I don't like being a person, a figure, or a leader, or any of these things. What I like is to express. What I like is the communication and empathy, the underlying language that goes on when you're with fellow human beings. And maybe I'm just expressing something that everyone else feels. I haven't heard it articulated yet. I haven't heard someone convey this message. Maybe I'm just relaying instincts. And since I'm such a fundamental person, I'm a very fundamentalist in the sense of I like to understand the core things, the core ideas. I don't like to glaze over the details. I think that was one of my biggest fucking problems in school as a youngster, as a whippersnapper. Is so you're teaching me math, but you're not teaching me why math. You're showing me astronomy, but you're not teaching me gravity. You're telling me words, but you're not teaching me where that comes from. A good example is I was always reluctant to even learn English because I didn't understand its fundamentals, its origin. As an example, English comes from Old English, which is a Germanic language, which just kind of that blows my mind. The fact that most of our words and etc. come from German. And then how our history sort of like circulates within itself, and then it leads into this idea that we call the present. But you know what trumped that? What trumped my disfavor, my unliking to understand something like English, like language, without its fundamental, was my desire to express, and eventually that desire just grew. I feel I began wanting to express more and more, and this hunger to express things, it's not necessarily to relate it to another person, although that seems to be a reality involved in it. It seems to be part of this whole piece that I find myself circling like a shark in water. I find that more than anything, it's an observation. It's an I see. Do you see what I see kind of deal? Relaying experience and influence, conveying perception. It's really, okay, so I'm brought back to one of my favorite examples that exists inside of my mind, which is Plato's allegory of the cave. Which is, it's this allegory about Plato, and or it's this allegory about three men who are strapped to a cave, and they're facing a wall, and there seems to be light behind them, although they're not really sure on what's behind them. They see shadows being projected in front of them. So I guess you can imagine sort of three columns. This chair I'm sitting in, this is one column. You see two more columns next to me. There are three of us. Me, this dude, this chick, or this dude, or this chick. Whichever you prefer. I'm not sexist. So you have these three columns, and each of us are chained to these three columns, and we were born in these chains, right? We lived our entire lives through these chains. One day, I get set free. Quote, unquote, I'm Plato, right? I leave the cave, and I notice, so let's bring it back a few decimals back. So all three of us are still strapped to this cave, and while we're strapped to this cave, we're acknowledging shadows, and we're coming up with words and developing theories on what these shadows represent, on what they mean, on we see this pointy-eared looking thing, and we're like, hey, cat, hey, this, hey, that, and we come up with names and associations and labels for these different shadows. Excuse me, sorry. One day, me, philosopher, gets released. I am, me, regular, one of the three people chained, gets released. I go outside, and I'm fucking swamped. I'm mesmerized. It takes me a while just to accustom my eyes to stop looking at the shadows and thinking that those are reality, and looking up at the people who are projecting them, at the figures and shapes that are projecting them. It takes my eyes a while to adjust, but as it does, I start to come to new ideas of reality. New words, new associations, new perceptions, new things to express. And I come back into the cave, and I tell my two friends, blah, 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 and blah, da, da, yada, yada, and yada, who. I tell these two individuals, hey, man, you guys gotta get out there. You gotta see all these things that I've seen, right? There's this thing called a tree, and this thing called a dog, and this, and this, and this, and these shadows that you're seeing, they're not real. They're just projections of something else. And, they're reluctant to even hear this nonsense. They're looking at me like I'm bugging. Like they perceive, see, because this is all they've known. See, not too long ago, I myself strapped to these chains would have thought it was bucking. Like, who would have known? Anything outside of a shadow? Because I've never even seen myself. I'm in the darkness, right? And then all of a sudden, I exist. Like, a deeper version of myself exists, and it shows in light. And all these other figures exist, and they also show in light. And they actually project shadows, and shadows aren't the actual realities, which I thought were from my position in the cave. And they don't want to leave. Not only are they reluctant to leave, they fight me. They dare me to take off those chains. What is real is what they perceive as real, which are the shadows projected in front of them. Plato gave this example because he wanted to express what it's like to be a philosopher, to understand the depth of what it really is to be you, to what really are ideas, how they are manifestations of the mind, and all these other things, and how badly he wanted to express these things to these people, and how people are so against change by nature that they will fight you for it. They would rather be deprived of light and ignorant to the bliss which is outside, because a few things. One, that transition between this perception of seeing shadows and this between seeing 3D images, you can imagine the kind of distortion that would feel, and the body sort of instinctively predicts these things. Predicts this radical change, and it's like, what? Get the fuck out of here. I am not touching that with a 10-foot pole. So I guess that sort of helps me break down that idea. The idea that I was born to express things, to reveal that which I see. I mean, that's my fundamental nature. I mean, whether that's my purpose, it brings out one of my other favorite quotes, which I should start remembering the names for these people who write these quotes, because it's not very nice for me not to. But it reminds me of one of these other quotes. Maybe it's Mark Twain who said this, which is, one of the greatest abilities of the human being is to design their own purpose. Isn't it me or you who develops our own purpose, who comes up with our own ideas for what is real and what is not? I will leave whoever's listening with that. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope you guys have a fantastical night. If you're watching this in the morning, have a fantastical morning. And I really enjoyed this talk in particular, this rant, or this expression. And I want to develop a new thing called, I'm being a little too loud, but I want to develop this new thing called the art of ranting. So we have a lot of different arts, and we do have people doing this art of ranting, but it's not really a thing yet, and I want to make it a thing. So, anyways, I'll fast forward to the ending where I say, I hope I didn't waste almost 20 minutes of your time, 17.30 seconds, and have a great night, like I said, or morning, or whatever it is you want to have. It all comes down to how you perceive. Thank you very much for listening. Ciao.